The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here he is, Brandon.
Welcome back to the Brandon Peters Show, and now we'll finally enter a little more October horror territory on this show. I know we started with a couple of things that worked. We're gonna bring you another installment of Products of the Panic, and that means, do you hear the bell toll? Do you hear the graves a shaking? Do you hear, I don't know, Satan quaking?
Need that Sammy Terry intro.
There you go.
It's my love with tales of love.
From the fires of hell, Troy Brownfield of the Saturday Evening Post. There we
Greetings,
go.
Brandon.
Welcome, brother.
Darkness.
I cheers my blood to you. That's what we drink. So it's been a while. I think we get one in last year, or did we
did.
I think we got one.
Done maybe 3 of them.
I think we did 2 to we did a double special kickoff, then we did another one. So yeah, so it's been a while. So for those of you who maybe have found the Brandon Peters Show later on or don't remember or something, the Products of the Panic is Troy and I's series of looking back at things from the 1980s Satanic Panic period in the United States of America. Did Canada have this too? Because I'm in this thing now. Everybody's America. I'm like, you realize Canada is in North? You're probably referring to the America that is North America, which includes Canada, because we're United Statesians.
Well, I think there maybe we'll have. I think we should look at that. I think we should look at the stuff elsewhere. Because you and I might have talked about this before, but in this century, and in Africa in particular, there have been a couple of protracted panics, notably the vampire panic in Malawi.
Right? Yeah, you've talked about that one.
Crazy. But it's not like other countries are immune from it, but I think a lot of it was a uniquely American, like U.S. America expression of hysteria that happened to take a whole decade.
Yeah, because it's funny because people, I'm American. I'm like, technically a South American is an American, a Central American, which includes those Mexico people you love, people that probably that like to say I'm an American. They're Americans too. We're all Americans over here.
Yeah.
So it's just got clarity here for those listening. I'm like, I would slip up and say American. I referring to North America, or I'm referring to North America. But so yeah, the 1980s Satanic Panic, where they believed devil worship was everywhere. Your neighbor next door was worshiping Satan and going to kidnap your children, eat it, drink its blood, all that sort of thing. You got movies, you got television, like everything was influenced. We talked about the new special about Dungeons and Dragons. We talked about heavy metal, which is going to come back in a big way today. But that's kind of what we're looking at, these weird oddities of this period of panic for no reason and just bullshit to scare United States white people out of their minds. And if you're like, well, what? And like, look at, if you're familiar with QAnon, that's kind of what's going on today, is similar to that, and a lot of stuff you might hear from people leaning hard to a right side, and when you hear wild things like liberals drinking blood, liberal politicians that drink blood and stuff and try to, it's a reprise of this.
It's all been done before, as our Canadian neighbors sang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and religion, honestly, this was part of like, religion actually was on its way out till Billy Graham wound up in the White House. Not
Yeah.
like elected, but wound up influencing. And then it comes back in a way in the 80s and brings this panic with it, with a lot of it.
There's a couple of things, and we talked about them in previous installments, but I think there's kind of two main things we should probably restate before we get started. Number one is in 1980, a book came out called Michelle Remembers, which is a book about
we should do a book report on that one sometime.
Satanic ritual abuse, SRA. A lot of the people in the whole panic causing side refer to it as SRA. And so this woman talked about all of her experiences where she was made a baby factory for Satanists, that she gave birth, and she saw one child like eaten and one sacrificed, and blah blah blah, and it was all bullshit. It was totally made up. And she had a psychiatrist that became her partner in this. They went on lots of talk shows, blah blah. It helped get the ball rolling that there was a Satanist in every basement. And this coincided with Reagan, in order to cement his base, threw in with Falwell's people, Jerry Falwell, who had already been engaging in lots of moral fights with Larry Flint and other people, but they merged this, what would be called the moral majority, with the Republican Party in order to secure victory. And they did things like attacking Jimmy Carter for it's just so hilarious in the face of it, like saying he wasn't a real Christian. Jimmy Carter.
That's what they do with Joe Biden currently today. He's not and he's a devout Catholic.
and all of this stuff. But anyway, they win. And as Brandon was saying, when Reagan gets in the White House with these guys, they kind of are emboldened and run roughshod over a lot of the culture at that point. And there's also a rise in televangelism, and also one more thing, a huge 80s explosion in talk shows. And talk shows all over the screen, they need all kinds of shit to fill the talk show time. And so if it's on one talk show, all the other ones are going to book it.
Yeah.
So
it's a circuit. Yeah. And speaking of talk shows, today we are going to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Geraldo Rivera special, Devil Worship, Exposing Satan's Underground.
And beyond the mayhem and monsters, it's said that a nationwide network of satanic criminals exists. Start with the warped and wicked Charles Manson.
It's everything that human beings don't understand. It's all their fears. It's what they're not sure of. You dig what I'm saying? Satan to me would be God.
Or the demented son of Sam killer David Berkowitz. These and others purportedly linked to the Devil Worship Underground.
Who is Satan? Yeah, Satan. Yeah, Satan.
It's all over the United States and probably all over the world, because it's just something that people are experimenting with now.
Impossible to measure, easy to doubt. The very mention of it invites ridicule.
Come out.
No, I won't let her go. No. Often the choice is to avoid confronting it, ignore it, find other explanations, or laugh it off. That is not the choice we have made tonight. We have chosen to ask why. Via satellite, we'll be asking the youngest person on Oklahoma's death row, just 17 when he killed in the name of Satan, why he murdered his own parents. And to Southern California, where we will ask the parents of children in the notorious McMartin preschool why they claim their kids were satanically abused. And to London, where rock star Ozzy Osbourne will tell us why he feels he and heavy metal music are getting a bum rap. And to the state penitentiary in Angola, Louisiana, to ask convicted killer Charles Gervais why he thought the devil would award him 10,000 souls.
The Investigative News Group presents the Geraldo Rivera Special. Devil Worship. Exposing Satan's Underground.
Which aired on October 22nd, 1988. I didn't plan that it was going to be until I was writing the script for this, and I was like, oh, that's nice. It was
It moves in mysterious ways.
Right. It was a 2-hour special that ran at 8 p.m. on NBC. Think about that. Think about it. This was the event special for primetime television. And we're about to hit November sweeps too. Like, they were like, we're going up against what was on then. I was gonna say Dallas, but that would have been like a Thursday night show, I think. But
yeah, I don't know what would have been the thing, but
because Sunday Night Football was not. That was Monday Night Football was the big national primetime game back then. Sunday night was did
Sunday
ESPN
was NBC, right?
Huh?
Sunday night was NBC, right? Sunday Night Football was on NBC, and then Monday had.
Well, I know ESPN got a hold of Sunday Night Football at some point, and then they switched because Monday night used to be ABC, used to be Monday Night Football,
right?
And the night game, the Sunday night game, was on like ESPN, and then the importance of them changed when they put the NFL on NBC for prime time back in like 2005 or 2006.
Yeah, you're right. Because on football always made 60 Minutes run late, so it would have been on the other network. So, but not CBS. But yeah, this particular time also followed. Over the preceding couple of years, Geraldo had done other sensationalized specials, but they were shown in syndication. And the Al Capone's Vault special, probably the most infamous,
right? But
it was a syndicated thing, so it was shown on the local channels that paid to run it. For the kids that don't know what syndicated is, because it doesn't really exist that much anymore. But syndicated primetime anyway. But NBC wanted some of that, low budget, high ratings Geraldo action.
Right, because it was syndicated, but they got ratings. Like, that was...
Yeah. And, well, I'll spoil this right now. A third of U.S. households watching TV on that Thursday night in October of 1988 were watching this show.
It was Sunday. It was a Sunday night.
Oh, it's Sunday. I thought it was
This is a Sunday. No, it was a holy day. You got to have it on then to fight the... So, this, and it didn't bring what NBC, thought it would... so this stirred such an advertiser resistance to it. Like, people did not want this. So they had to sell commercials at half price, apparently. And then NBC News was mad. They felt it was below the standards of their network. The show, it met oppositions in some corners of the network. NBC's The Morning Program Today refused to allow Geraldo Rivera on the air to promote this show. And then also, part of the reluctance to advertisers wanting to pay or be part of the show was the show was not taped until late the day before it aired, and gave the clients no chance to screen the program before buying airtime for ads. So this is cheap. They filmed it the day before it aired. They go to a package, yes, but this is like nightly news, production, with just an extra day to produce it. That's
well, and it deploys the talk show setup of Geraldo's in front of the studio audience, and
it's sort of but it's not like a studio, like a talk show. It looks like a class. It's trying to be a classroom because they got the folding chairs and stuff, so it's not quite comfortable for his people to sit there, so they're squirmy. I wonder if that's by design, just to make them not comfortable sitting for a 2-hour special.
I think it was the LA Times that said NBC lost $500,000 on the advertising. Woo! Because they had to give away so much to even sell ads, because people were so not into it.
yeah it's crazy, and it's sensationalized. And if you have listened to the episodes where we talk about I believe it was last year, we did the WNUF Halloween special. I did that with Jessica, which Troy, you and I had done it on my old show before. And then we did the second WNUF Halloween special. And this feels like, if you put them side by side, you think this Geraldo one was up for shits and giggles some of the time.
Yeah, and if nothing else, that speaks to the absolute quality and authenticity of the WNUF series.
Right. Yes.
Like those guys just nail it in so many profound ways, and this is the proof, is that these show, and we'll get into it as we kind of break stuff down, but you know, like teasing setup, sinisterly edited package, lack of next thing.
And constantly going to that home screen of the logo, which looks like the the title card that they keep playing with that little theme song.
Yeah,
it looks like a training video from like a workplace, doesn't it? Like,
oh yeah,
it doesn't seem like Satan. It looks like maybe some high school kids will think this looks cool when they're working at X grocery store or department store. But I'm just like, it doesn't look scary. Wouldn't you want it to be scary looking? Like, like the WNUF had the scary stuff at least, but this was like, and the music doesn't sound good. Like, it's like, it sounds like just the nightly news or something.
It's the production values are absolutely dreadful. It's a terrible looking piece.
Is it terrible? It is. And like the way this plays off, the way the personalities are, the way the debates go, the way that everything happens here, this feels like seeds planted, and I'm sure all the talk shows did it, for what will become cable news.
Yeah,
I'll say cable news, but in my mind, I see Fox News in it. I'm sure someone more conservative based than could see CNN or something in it, but because CNN those MSNBC, CNN, they carry that extremism to a different degree, but it's there. But I think the embrace of it seems Fox News-ish.
Yeah.
But I'll say, I'll just generally lay out cable news here, even though I point my finger at Fox right away, but there are some qualities of the others taken from this.
And just because, history is sometimes a series of cascading waves, at roughly the same time that this is happening was when the U.S. government fast-tracked Lachlan Murdoch's application for citizenship, because he wanted to buy the TV stations in the U.S., and he wasn't a citizen. He's Australian. And so he vacated his Australian citizenship and was fast-tracked, because he was a friend of Ron, his citizenship application, and then he buys the networks, which leads, he buys all the local affiliates, which leads to the creation of Fox as separate entities, including the news network, which doesn't debut into the 90s, but he started doing this kind of stuff on the local stations first.
Right.
The local news, the stuff you've heard in the last few years about like certain stations getting sent the news things that they're supposed to read, that's Murdoch shit. Yeah. And it's the same time as what is happening right here in this special.
And this is 88. This is late into the panic. Like, this special probably had a better place in 85, 84.
It's very much, it feels in a way like it's trying to keep it going. It's
kind of what?
It feels like it's trying to keep it going.
Right. It's like, hey, we need to get some fire in this. So like, it starts out, Geraldo and the people, like, he comes out hot for heavy metal, like instantly. That's the blame. Like, they probably spend a good the first 20 minutes of this, like, demonizing heavy metal. And there's such awful shit here to where, like, unprofessional, I'll say, for what he's doing, because there's clips of rockers. Geraldo's given a voiceover, and they interview a guy from a band, like a more independent heavy metal band, and he's like, well, our music is not meant this, we're doing this. He's explaining himself why they have like their imagery and stuff like that, and what they're meant to do with their show. And right after, Geraldo's voiceover goes, bull.
Yeah, that's King Diamond.
That's
Venom, and
okay.
then later King Diamond, who is
Okay.
talking.
I couldn't remember
because he's articulate.
Yeah, because he starts out. There's an undeniable connection to heavy metal, rock and roll, and he's Wasp, Slayer, Megadeth, Iron Maiden, and like there's a guy they interview named Spike who's the Satanist, right? But like he's saying bull in the voiceover. That's
Yeah.
that's some bullshit. I'll say bull.
Well, yeah, and this goes to another hobby horse of mine. You hear this phrase a lot, journalistic objectivity, and what it's supposed to mean, and what it used to mean, and what it's supposed to mean is that when you present the news in a TV, radio format, or even a print format, that if you are doing non-opinion news, like a news report or a straight news story or whatnot, then the writer or the presenter, reporter, etc., is presenting it without comment. Objective means you're saying it without passing judgment or injecting your opinion on it. What the Murdoch brand has done they've twisted objectivity to mean both sidism. And so what you've got here is Geraldo doesn't have King Diamond talk about it and then present a counterbalance, like an opposing party. He plays the opposing party.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, no, bull, yeah.
I have a question about Geraldo Rivera.
Just one?
Probably many, but is he some deeply religious guy? Like, is that because I don't know. Like, I get he's trying to go to calls, and you religious people, it feels like you religious people should feel this way. But I don't feel I don't sense any bit of religion coming from this guy.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what his background is, but I mean, he's certainly trying to play moral crusader here. And I'm warning you about the danger.
Yeah, like it feels like he's a figurehead of somebody else trying to say the message rather than he really buys this cause the whole time, and he's trying to oversell it. Like I feel his conviction to win every battle he's in here, but I don't feel his conviction of like the cause here.
Yeah,
it's crazy, and it's funny. Like when they start this thing, there is no overview of tonight we're gonna do this. It is straight to heavy metal, like straight in, like this devil rock. Your kids are probably, and they have the mom that's like, well, I thought it was a fad. I thought it was a phase like I did. Well, that's something. I saw the album covers. They were ugly, but if they were sold in stores, I felt it was okay because it was okay.
Yeah.
Because it was okay.
Yeah. And, the Henry Rollins once said, in respect to the idea of parents being afraid of music, he talked about, and this example is bad in retrospect for what he is, but he said, everything that kids went through in the 70s with Zeppelin, and kids went through the 80s with heavy metal, kids in the 90s, they happily come home with their copy of Antichrist Superstar, and it's like,
right,
Dad, I'm into this guy. Fuck you. You fucked up. You're terrible parents. I'm into the he's like, because that's what each generation does. They find something that's extreme in some way, and
we had White Zombie, we had Marilyn Manson, but those guys were like lame compared to the the 80s metal guys or the 70s. Like these guys were for show, but so they bring Ozzy on for this metal, and he's just like, oh no, man, I have songs about Satan. I do, like, it's part of my thing. And I love it. He's like, people, you feel responsible. He's like, and I love Ozzy's. I don't feel responsible. I feel persecuted, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, He goes, well, there's some people that disagree with you here. Like, persecuted. I'm like, yeah, you should.
It's a wonderfully lucid Ozzy Osbourne, we should say.
Yeah.
Ozzy's very clear. And it's funny because I'd have to look. I don't want to disparage the Oz, but I'm pretty sure he's nowhere near sober at this point.
No.
And this is a guy who earlier in that same decade, that on his first tour with Motley Crue, they witnessed him snort a line of ants.
Yeah.
So it's hilarious on the face of it that of course they chose Ozzy. They want to choose the guy that's the wild man, the bat guy, the pigeon guy, and all this stuff. And he's like, no, I feel like it's not me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because he's like, it's perm Ozzy, and then he's got like a like your grandma or the shoulder pads jacket, and like sitting there, and he looks like he's on like Nightline with the background. Like,
yeah,
they got like there's nothing. You think that the set of this thing would be scary, the things that would be too scary, but it's not. It's all like matter of fact news, like. Don't do drugs. I think they got the don't do drugs set for the don't do Satan set. Like that's
right.
that's what it reeks of here. But yeah, so they have I want to mention too, as they go through this, they interview people, and some of them have blurred faces, right?
Yeah.
That are not that blurred that I see. I'm like, I can see that guy's face. Like, I don't know what, like, I see it's supposed to be blurred, but was he like, I would like 10% blur, please?
We talked to Joe, not his real name. the one guy, Nick Patron, who's the stand-up comedian who did a really large analysis of this, a 10-part analysis for Trouble City, in fact, refers to one of the guys as Mr. Flock of Seagulls because he's got the hat on but the curly hair sticking out. He's vaguely blurred.
Yes.
And but you can totally see that guy's face. There's no
no blur. It's clear as day.
It's like a 10% filter.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. And I love the scare tactics Geraldo uses during this is like that Satan is even in the heartland of this country. The heartland. Bible Belt. You Midwestern scared people. The people that big cities scare. It's in your neighborhood. Because Geraldo cares about the heartland.
And that, Brandon and I, having come from Indiana, have to tell you that that's really why Indiana needs to invest in more activity centers for its young people.
Yes.
They don't have a place to go to play basketball or have dances. They're going to go out and find Satan.
Yep, that's what happens.
He's in cornfields. He's just waiting.
He's waiting. He's in charge of the corn. He who walks behind the rows.
Malachi
is us. So yeah, he talks about up here there's like grave robbing and this like stealing the right knuckle, and they have this expert guy out there that's like talking about they get the right knuckle, and I think they wear them as a necklace or whatever. I'm like, how come we don't see these necklaces? No one's got evidence of these necklaces. It's so funny. Like,
yeah, like everybody should know that that's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's a family of raccoons sitting up there in a tree. It's like, hey, did Rudy get the right knuckle? Yeah, Rudy's in the club.
Yeah, he's like, is that a right? Let me look. Oh, it's a female right knuckle. That's why I was thrown off. Okay. So we got but yeah, it's so wild that and did you notice like, and this is kind of just going over the whole thing. So he brings on, there are plenty of like experts that are brought into this. There's police, there's medical, there's priests, of course, but do you notice like everybody who's in like the law profession with this is like retired and not actively in the force? And they're like, why isn't this happening? And I'm like, probably because, why don't you ask your colleagues or call the other town, and they'll be like, well, it's because it's bullshit, so this is and that. Yeah. But the angry, shouting, questioning man is a lot more convincing than just not showing up because it's like, yeah, dude, it's bullshit.
Yeah. There's an interesting counter narrative here that you could look at in terms of we'll talk about a couple of the other things, but like maybe the rise of the police expert in stuff. because and we'll touch on Berkowitz a little bit later, but Maury Terry, who wrote the Ultimate
Oh yeah, he
Evil,
comes on here. Yeah.
he's in this special. I only mentioned him now because he was famous in part for his reporting on the Son of Sam and for interviewing Berkowitz and letting Berkowitz take him on a ride about this whole network of serial killers. But when you had a real interviewer, John Douglas, the guy who co-founded the behavioral science unit of the FBI, who wrote Mindhunter and all those books, is the basis for Criminal Minds and all that. He sat down with Berkowitz, and 5 minutes into the interview, when Berkowitz was talking about his devil stuff, he's like, "You're full of shit." And Berkowitz broke. Berkowitz said that he went to the devil stuff to try to cop a plea, and Douglas never forgave the guys that propagated the devil thing, because he had that bastard eating out of his hand just a few minutes into it, because he didn't buy it. He was conditioned not to buy it because he was part of the group that founded the principles of behavioral science for the FBI. So he wasn't buying this crap. But, some of these guys who had no training, and it kind of goes to this thing that Alan Moore, the great comic book writer and self-styled magician, said, this is just a paraphrase, but people are more comfortable believing in conspiracies because when you confront the reality that there is nothing steering the ship, that there is nobody in control, that there is no force, then that's way more terrifying than the idea that someone's manipulating everything behind the scenes.
Right. This is true. The truth is always either more boring or boring and scary. But yeah, they do that. So he's there, like all these experts. I just have to. I'm like, nobody's actively in it. They're all old and grumpy guys that just too much time on their hands, and they're like, well, why don't police go undercover? They don't want to go undercover. Like, what the? They won't get about. They'll have to kill somebody to be undercover. I'm like, what? Like, if the police officer's undercover, they know this isn't The Departed. They'll know he's undercover with the Satanists. The Satanists aren't undercover in the police.
Yeah.
And if he disappears, well, shit, let's go. It's the biggest excuse machine in the world because you have nothing. Because there is nothing.
And it's a whole lot of local PD people. In the 80s, there's this period where we have a shitload of DEA and CIA guys embedded in South America and in different places. And some of these guys do get killed.
Right.
Working on the Panama stuff and Colombia stuff and everything. So it's not like we didn't have people put in precarious situations where they might have to take somebody out. They were there. They just weren't these guys. And they were in this stuff because there wasn't any.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm sure it's so dangerous to go hang with a bunch of dorks that are just atheists and agnostic people. Just
in black bathrobes.
Like,
hey, Phil didn't stop at Penny's to get his black bathrobe. Somebody give Phil a bathrobe.
So what happened there? Would they drink blood? So now they just had like a chapter meeting. Derek, or as he goes by Ezekiel, he's backed up on his dues. They're angry at him. I thought they were gonna maybe drink his blood or something, but no, they threatened collections. That's what happened.
This great idea. They're all sitting around in a circle. Who wants to share? Oh, I do. Oh, go ahead, Bill. It's Behemoth. Okay, Behemoth. Hi, I'm Behemoth. Everybody. Hi, Behemoth. Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
That'd be a great sketch. We have our formal this weekend. Troy and I are gonna make this one day.
The colors are black and red.
If we ever have the time, we will make that as like a promo video for an ongoing sitcom Satanist chapter. You read that verse last week. Well, get a lot out of it. So so he has this like the people on stage, so it's like a talk show where you have the people sitting up there, but he doesn't use them often enough. One person like doesn't get much, and I think he has trouble with the one guy because he's outwitting Geraldo show. So they have I can't remember her name. There's a woman, and her father's some noted
It's Anton LaVey's daughter.
Anton LaVey, okay.
One of his daughters, I believe it was his youngest.
Okay.
And her name's escaping me at the moment, but she went on the show because she tried to convince her dad that this kind of offensive was something that they had to deal with. And LaVey was like, fuck it. I was Satan before, I'll be Satan after. No, it's I banged Jane Mansfield, and it's but he didn't want to do anything with it. He just withdrew from it, and she decided to engage. But she's at this point, she herself has not been given a lot of media training.
Yeah, you can tell she's been on TV, but he doesn't let her. She gets owned by Geraldo because she's trapped in his tricks that she is not experienced enough to know better.
Yeah, and in fact, she did interviews later on about the special, talking about how she worked on her presence because of the fact that she felt she got kind of worked on the that they sensed that she's not maybe as experienced as that. And then her dad did come out and talk it was a couple years later for a Rolling Stone interview, which has the genius title of "It's Hard Being Evil in a World That's Gone to Hell." So he came out and talked finally, after this period of stuff, was sort of on the way out, and gave a great interview. It's really funny. He is so full of shit too, but it's so they have her, and she gets quieted quickly after when she answers questions, or she's like and she thinks too hard about what she's gonna say to be careful. Then there's my favorite person in this whole thing, who I have dubbed Colonel Satan. Satan.
He's a Satanist preacher, and he's on there. He dresses the part, but he looks like what we all think Butch Patrick would have grown up to be.
He looks like the dudes from Galaxy Quest.
Yeah. So he talks about this stuff being, products of a broken, misguided, like the murders is what he gets first attacked about. And he talks about being these murders being products of broken, misguided people. And he doesn't say it like they grill him about it, and he talks about Satanism and stuff. But I feel like all the stuff in this, and it was clicking with me with like Geraldo talking about it and these people, their accusations.
Yeah.
They sound like they sound just like what we would think about Christians today that go out and shoot people up and stuff in the name of Jesus and stuff. But this is just like Satan, and this is where they're accusing these Satanists of doing things that the Christian people would be doing a couple decades later.
Yeah.
En masse.
Now, I think it's around this part. They're talking to a couple of people in the studio and so forth. There's a Reverend James LaBar who is spoken to.
Okay.
And I mentioned him as kind of a bridge because when I talked about earlier, I mentioned that 2020 had that exorcism special. LaBar was the guy that was instrumental in setting up that exorcism for the special. So he's another one of these dudes that's deep in all of the promotional wing.
Right.
Panic. Because they keep coming back. They're recurring characters.
Yeah. He's not the priest. There's one priest that talks about there's this small town where they feel like there's some Satanist murders going around. They show the clips inside the church or something, and the woman's like, all due respect, and I love Jesus, but I'm going to carry my gun because I'm scared.
Yeah. LaBar is from the New York diocese, so I think it was a different one. But
okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because there's that one. And then there's like exorcism stuff. That's one of the big areas he covers. And he gives the disclaimer constantly, do not let the kids come. If your kids are still watching, this is the point, which is just saying, kids, watch this. Kids, watch this. Kids, watch this. And they go through all the exorcisms. They show clips from The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby, which are probably the most recognizable movie clips shown in this, because there's other movie clips and stuff shown in this that are supposed to be real Satanism stuff. But I'm like, that's from a movie. That's from a that's not like, and it's like they're trying to show it as if it's real footage from like Satan cult meetings and stuff. And I'm like, that's a movie. That's not a real church. That's what are you? So,
and it's funny about Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby, because for pretty obvious reasons, these were films that were made more than a decade earlier. Exorcist 73, Rosemary's Baby before that, and then,
they're relatively fresh. I mean, in terms of, they're legendary films at this point, but they're 15 and 20 years old, maybe.
Yeah, and so there's they were very big at the time for causing a lot of controversy. Rosemary's Baby came out about the same time as the Is God Dead controversy from the Time magazine cover and all of that. And then when The Exorcist came in, one of my favorite things about The Exorcist, which turns 50 this year, is that it opened on December 26th, which is just like Warner Brothers going, ha, here's your holiday movie. You want your holiday movie? And but there was a firestorm around The Exorcist of controversy and everything about the content. So I think that invoking these, there's a little bit of that crossover content, but invoking both of those is just like a real easy button pusher for the people in the audience that would be put off by those films anyway. It's like, remember these things you hated?
Yep.
We're going to show you pictures of these things you hated to get you more riled up.
Keep getting here you go. I'm gonna tell you about it. But these the Satanists that we have up on front and center, they're like I said before, though, they appear to be brought on in a discussion fashion, but they're simply there for scares and simple answers to be judged. Like that's pretty much what he wants out of them.
And Colonel Satan, as you referred to, because he's a colonel in the United States Army, ends up later writing a book about a different panic within the Army, the Presidio, the base, the movie's named after. There's a molestation scandal at the Presidio.
They bring that up here. And
that the base chaplain tried to accuse him of being involved, and he ended up writing a book about it, about how he had to deal with this asshat and clear his name over a long period of time. And there's actually I've seen a couple of photos of the much older Colonel Satan in his dress uniform. He's got white hair. He's still got some wacky eyebrows.
Right.
His hair is white. He's older, and he's decked out in dress with his medals on. And I'm like, he was a legit. I don't know where he is now, but he was a legit officer and wrote a book about having to deal with all this shit.
Let this Satanism in our army.
You can't handle the truth.
This guy's very fast. He's whatever Geraldo wants him to say back, it's not what Geraldo wants. The guy never loses his cool. Right. He keeps calm. He speaks in facts. He speaks in what's true, what's not. But they do out Sammy Davis Jr. and Jane Mansfield as Satanists in this.
The Sammy Davis Jr. thing is pretty both of these are actually pretty well known trivia bits, but really it's Sammy Davis Jr. He converted Judaism, but he just hung out with a lot of different cats, and so Anton LaVey liked being around famous people, and Sammy Davis Jr. and Anton LaVey just like hang out.
It's no different than the Beatles visiting that guru guy for that was a thing.
The post 2 issues on that in the 60s. And then Jane Mansfield was introduced to him after an event at a party. That's pretty well documented. There were photos of it, and one of LaVey's daughters, I think he has 3, said, "Oh yeah, they totally hooked up over a period of time, but you can't, you can either say that or not. He
Right.
always said it was true, but who's not gonna,
Yeah.
what,
Right. Yeah.
dude,
I'm not gonna deny it. Sure.
we played cards, and I did a blessing, and it's like, one day your daughter will be on the longest running TV show of all time. And no, he's not gonna say that. He was like, oh yeah, Jane Mansfield, totally.
Right. So they also bring up contemporary Satanists.
Yeah.
They like animal sacrifice, mutilations, and so they go all these animal mutilations and stuff, and then like there's no evidence that Satanism going on. Like,
yeah,
there's this small, I think that was where the small town with the preacher thing came from, with the woman with the gun. But like, they're just looking around like, are there wolves here? Are there like, but it's all drained of the blood. The blood's all drained. It's all gone.
yeah,
Like,
because an animal that's torn in half by a coyote does not exsanguinate.
Right.
That's there's no, that's the one thing that's always driven me nuts about the animal mutilations that are just raccoons and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a dog.
Right.
You find a dead animal in the park, probably just died. It's a park.
Yeah.
There are animals there. That's what they do. Their life cycle
yeah.
is short.
Right. It's so weird, but yeah. But Geraldo and his push to prove, like, there's so much stuff in here that like is forced in here to be Satanism and clearly isn't. Like,
yeah,
I want to jump ahead. I'm going to jump ahead. Speaking of that,
go right ahead.
The Kansas City homosexual killer guy, which they mentioned, for a small amount of money, these kids will do anything with anyone. And they try to spin this into Satanism. I'm like, this is just some sick fuck. Like, there's nothing that says he's a Satanist too. It's just like, he was just like into some, and he wasn't killing a lot of them. He was just abusing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they found they found like a body in his backyard, or a skull in his house. And then like, that was it. But like, he was just like abusing people that were homeless kids on the street because he could get away with it, because he had some sort of perverted sexual fantasy. There was nothing Satanist about this guy. Like, he was a sexual abuser, potential murder. Well, he was convicted of a couple murders, but like, that was probably him taking his sexual abuse too far.
Yeah, and well, I'll just ping pong off of that to the Maury Terry thing real quick.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about these murders and ascribing satanic motives to them.
Yeah.
That was part of Terry's whole bag, because he studied Berkowitz and then wrote the
Mm-hmm.
book, and he tried to connect all these different people. And Henry Lee Lucas, serial killer, horrible
Mm-hmm.
person. But when he found out they're interested in like a satanic angle, he played to it. Berkowitz played to it because of his defense, and all these guys. And so you had all these guys that were poking at the Satan bear. And then you had one guy that was legit, and that was Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez was 100%, for it's the one in every crowd. If you watch the Night Stalker documentary on Netflix, or read anything extensively about Richard Ramirez, that guy was 100% the Prince of fucking Darkness. That guy was insane. And really, he believed the devil shit, but it was very particular to him. He didn't have a team. He was insane.
So he took the sex literally, which they talk about here in this. The text is not meant to be taken literally. We've already established that.
Yeah, he's the super villain of the group.
Well, there's also, in this one, there's the villain. There's that guy who's convicted that they speak to from jail, and his lawyer, which I feel like, I'm like, how much they pay that guy or offer that guy to just like go any way the Colonel Satan wasn't in the conversation. Like, it feels like he's trying to get under Colonel Satan's skin. Like, it doesn't feel like he's like, no, actually, it feels like he's trying to push buttons.
Yeah. And Colonel Satan's not buying it.
Like, did he get a couple steak meals at the penitentiary for doing that? Like, it doesn't feel genuine. It feels like he's like,
it's very robotic. It's very like he's reading from both of the guys they talk to from prison seem like they're reading off of cards that are off camera.
Right. And yeah, and Geraldo, yeah, because Geraldo wants to grill this Satanist. He's like slandering him and trying to bully his way, and the guy clearly just states facts and stuff. And there's also Geraldo's like, Satanism may be another constitutionally protected religion, but well, it is. The end. And then he talks about the soldiers because allowing a Satanist in the military, and I'm like, why do our soldiers have to be religious? What is this? Like, what?
Yeah,
It's like
everybody needs to have the Sergeant York problem, right? That they
right.
I have a deep conviction against killing people, but I'm going to have to protect my country. Or then you have Muhammad Ali, who gets his title stripped away because he didn't have no quarrel with those Kong. I mean,
yeah,
they don't like any kind of moral flexibility in terms of I don't want to kill people. So why wouldn't you want?
right. It's bizarre. Like, and it's like when I saw someone talking once, I was like, so like, what's up with this? Like, the flag is supposed to represent all of us. When did it become just the troops? Like,
Yeah,
our country flag, like, and at that only Christian troops.
yeah,
like,
it was about 21 years ago.
Yeah.
But can't you just see that this could go to the sitcom too?
Yeah.
The soldiers reunion sitting around. It's like, hey, remember that night we were in Kandahar and Frank absolutely refused to kill the locals until we found a chicken to sacrifice? They're going around Kandahar. It's like, what about a goat? And he's like, no, it's a Thursday. It's got to be a chicken.
It's got to be a chicken. Oh.
But
I have a Patreon, so if you keep adding to it and fund this program, you might get it.
Those crazy cultists spelled with a K. There you go.
We get more murder stuff or stuff like two doctors have provided medical evidence that it's Satanism. So, and there's these kids murdering people and these cults that they go over. But I'm like, where are the bodies? The family's looking for them. Like, where they just? It's like what if these kids were doing this? But let's talk about it like it is happening.
Yeah, and very, very closely related to the 60 Minutes Dungeons and Dragons special that we did an earlier episode on.
Right.
Is any wave of conjecture that you could try to say this kid killed themselves because they played D&D, or this kid killed his mom, so it's Satan, as opposed to mental illness, reprisal for abuse, two people fighting,
bullying.
Yeah, bullying. There's all these, and to a case, I'd say most of these murders are explained by other things very clearly once you look at them, absent the Geraldo special. If you look up the thing, they say this happened, and then the investigators said, oh, it's cultish, and then later they're like, no, it's this. And
right. Well, there's this kid that's in jail for him and his buddies like killing a kid just for like beating him to death. Yeah. And it's like, there's no Satanism connection here. It's just like someone was like, hey, what kind of music do you like? He's like, heavy metal. Like, oh, you might have killed that kid because you listen to heavy metal music, which heavy metal music equals Satan. So you were a Satanist. Like, that's the connection they go with.
Yeah. And as we learned in the other video we did, nearly everything is satanic, because they even
everything
Houston in that boat.
Oh, right. Bananarama and Whitney Houston, Satan's groups. Of course, guest star stopping by is Charles Manson. Stops by on this one. Introduced as, along with Hitler, today's top satanic celebrity. And the way Geraldo's like, along with Hitler, today's top satanic celebrity, because he is in full tabloid mode in this, which I don't know if Geraldo has another mode, but.
And far be it for me to defend Charles Manson, but those
but I'm gonna
those quotes that they have are hilariously edited down sound bites from a kind of half-hour ramble monologue he gave to a different interviewer,
right? Yeah.
And they just took these little parts out. and
to
make
make
it
him look crazy.
well, you know, it's like, is there a way to make Manson look worse?
Right.
You know, he's got the swastika on his head, and oh wait, he's fucking Charles Manson. But can we make him look worse?
Right.
Very deliberately chosen these you can always tell kids when you're watching an interview, and if there's a jump cut in the middle instead of the person speaking the complete quote, that's one key that it might be bullshit.
Right.
So that they're patching the sound and the sentences around as they keep switching the angles of where he's sitting in the same conversation.
Yeah.
But if you ever saw Manson interviewed at this point in the 80s and everything, all of his stuff was just, oh, the cameras are on me, I'm gonna do my devil man thing, because that's the show they came to see. It's you know, when Kiss finally realized they needed to put the makeup back on, that's Manson getting an interview. You know, he's
right.
Hey, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they're done. All right, I'm gonna go read a book. You know,
right?
Manson, of course, was an evil man who took advantage of women and spurred people to kill other people and all this other horse shit he did. But that wasn't enough for them. They had to manipulate the video.
Right. Yeah. No. That's yep. We had to make him look worse. They also have a guy that I felt like, is he this Nicholas Schreck guy? I felt like, paid actor.
No, he's in a band.
Okay.
And in fact, spoiler warning, LaVey's daughter,
okay,
was his wife.
Oh.
And he was, according to other people in that interview, deadpan fucking around with the interviewer. So he's like, I would really like to see murder on a grand scale. I would
yeah.
He's fucking with them.
Oh, that's good.
According to other sources, that they're like, oh, the interviewer's here, hang on, I want to see death and destruction. Okay, was that good? That's a good take. All right, I'm out.
You guys like that? Is that what you wanted? All right, cool.
Yeah, me and Anton's daughter gonna grab some pizza. You go. Yeah. So apparently, but that guy's in a band, and they were shock kind of music.
Okay.
But yeah, he 100% was like, oh, the cameras are on me.
Right. Well, and then they also bring this guy Charlie, who's like in jail or something, and he's like, tell us about this. And he goes, well, Geraldo, I can't talk about my case.
Yeah.
And then Charlie gets like pissed. He's like, Charlie, get to the Satanism. Where were you going to get this power? Where were you going to get this power? Where were you going to use this power? And I'm
10,000 souls.
And I'm like, you could ask this same thing about religious zealots who think they're going to have, like, where are you going to get this power? Like, if your book allows power, but you question the other book giving power, like, okay.
Yeah, the 10,000 souls are the 72 virgins of
yes, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I love that. I mean, I don't remember if I saw the whole thing or not. I know I saw it when it was on, at least part of it. But when the guy said, I can't talk about my case, that I just laughed out loud, because it's exactly what the guy should say.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, this guy at least has a lawyer.
Right, yeah.
Like, oh, Henry, they're gonna put you on the Satan special. Just say you can't talk about your case.
Yeah, it was so. I laughed. And these testimonies they have here too, like they feel rehearsed. They start getting into the breeders, where there's a woman whose name comes up. It says former breeder. And there's this one.
He played guitar before Kim put Kelly on guitar.
Yeah. That's
low-hanging joke. Sorry.
There we go. So like this one woman with glasses on, long black hair, who's obviously undiscernible as a person, like fake, right? Like I was like, she's like, oh, they did that to me. Oh my god. I was like, this is bad. This is who are you selling here? The dentist in WNUF Halloween special is Olivier compared to what you're doing here, ma'am.
Yeah. But the breeder thing was part of the I mentioned it earlier in the Michelle Remembers that whole thing of we're breeding children just to have them to sacrifice. And yeah, okay.
Yeah. I love that. I think Nick Shrek comes back here and like, was it Nick Shrek or somebody when they're talking about the breeders and stuff? And they're like, why don't you have your own? Is like, why would we want these people? Why well, we wouldn't have anything to do with their mediocre lifestyles. I thought that was, I kicked out of that.
Medium Satanist.
I believe we need to believe them. That was one of the things someone said. And then they, where are the bodies? If they're making you have babies and like sacrificing the brother, like they burn them, they put them in concrete, and then, and this is it, and I quote, they eat them and make the bones out of tools. They don't make the tools out of bones. They make the bones out of tools. That is I rewound it. That is a direct quote. Because I was like, did she say bones out of tools? She did. Because they bring this like woman. Right. They bring this woman on, this like ultra conservative dressed expert of I don't know what. It's just like, yeah, and you can see she's wearing the big poofy dress. It's like, well,
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole network of those people at this time too, with along with the cop experts and the Maury Terrys and everything. There's this network of conservative that are appearing on all of the talk shows. She's one of them, but it's
and then there's this is about the part where Colonel Satan starts getting and had enough. He's like, never a name here, never an arrest. Name them, arrest them. Name if they're doing murders or suspected. Name them, arrest them, because they can't, because it's bullshit. Yeah. But the cops are like, it's a lot of work. We officers don't want to do this. It's a lot of work. I'm like, just stop murders and sacrifices and abuse. That's a lot of work.
There are kids skateboarding that they need to harass.
Mm-hmm.
There are black guys that have to be pulled over. Don't you know anything about law enforcement?
Right, that's true. They call there's like, what's he called? Like he calls somebody as this officer who goes, he introduces him as a sincere man with a good reputation. Doesn't say he's been on a case. Doesn't say he knows shit about anything. Yeah. He calls him, and the guy is like, if these things are happening, or no, Geraldo's like, if these things are happening, there should be a national task force. This is just unacceptable. This impasse. I'm like, a national Satan task force. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And going back to the network of enablers, the so-called experts and so forth. And then, as I said, Maury Terry becomes very good friends with lots of police. And again, it's this inclination of they wanted to believe that Berkowitz, the son of Sam, was part of a larger group. And
right.
Then Terry posits that he's part of a network of serial killers all operating throughout the United States. And he's friends with a couple of NYPD. And so he gets them to believe it. And then they convince other cops, even though they don't see anything and there's never any evidence, they start trying to connect other cases to it with circumstantial stuff. But that's what powers that book, The Ultimate Evil. And that book is why Terry is there, because that, and if you're in our age group, remember the science fiction and fantasy book club?
Yeah.
Ultimate Evil was always a pick. It was always one of the ones you pick with your introductory 5 books. It has like the wolf's head, like jumping from the butt. It's like the ultimate.
Okay. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, the reporting that when he does the straight reporting of what happened with Berkowitz, it is pretty straightforward. This is what happened in the summer of, the 70s, blah, blah, blah.
Great Spike Lee movie around it.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
And this is what, but then when it gets past that, it goes like completely bonkers and tries to pull in like Fire Island and the gay community and like all this other stuff that, anything that's like fringe, it's part of the vast network. And they bring in this church murder that was supposedly committed by the husband killing the wife. It turns out it was the security guard that they tested it. They proved it with
God.
DNA. They interviewed the security guard and let him go, and then 20 years later, somebody decided, let's reopen that. Let's see if we can get the DNA, and sure enough, it was the damn security guard they let go.
Huh.
She was murdered in a church, and they tried to make that, part of the network, but it wasn't. It was random. The security guard attacked and killed her because he was a nut.
Yeah. They also, there's something we I want to mention in case people are familiar with this Geraldo video. There's a section of it where we're intentionally not going over the McMartin situation, which we'll be talking about on the next installment of Products of the Panic. So I just wanted to note that we're there, which involves a lot of children, and they get this whole thing about listen to the children. That's a big thing, which I feel like today's conservatives probably want anything but that.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and we don't want to, if you don't know about it, we don't want to do too many spoilers or get too deep into the McMartin thing, but just to address its place in this special, when the McMartin preschool accusations were made, it kicked off a landslide of other accusations at places across the country, and I think in Canada. So there's the North American angle.
America.
I think there were a couple of accusations, but it caused a lot of legal problems and firestorm. And at this point, this 88-point trial wasn't over yet. It would not be completely resolved until 1990. And I will say that Ray Buckey, one of the principals, spent 5 years in jail without bail during the process. And we'll get to it, but wow, what a miscarriage of justice, and still one of the most expensive individual criminal trials in the history of the United States.
Yeah, it's insane. We'll get to a telling of it and such, but they have the one thing they do like to scare is like your children. Their children, Satanists are gonna, don't let your children become a Satanist. Don't let your children get killed by Satanists, because we're all over the scare. They do bring on one last guy to talk to, and I like how he wants to tell an aside, and Geraldo's like, "Tell it briefly, Sean." But yeah, so it's kind of like what happens here is there's no evidence. There's not, like, it's all it's a very manipulatively edited with lots of scare tactics, clips from movies used as actual events, actors obviously saying things, like, it's ridiculous and how hokey. But this was, I mean, seen and believed, I would imagine. This was like, wow, they're really getting to our stuff here, and this shouldn't. I mean, like, I don't believe for a second Geraldo believes in this. I believe Geraldo believes he can get some big special out of this and get some airtime and stuff, but I don't know. It's just so point and yell at somebody rather, you're, look, Satan, there you are.
Yeah. And I feel like I made the joke about it's trying to make the panic last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Because at this point it was starting to wind down a little bit culturally. The heavy metal subliminal lyrics, suicide trials would be wrapped by 1990. The McMartin trial wraps in 90.
There's still the Oak Hill satanic, it happened in 91. That's still to come.
Yeah,
it happens, but
there's just a lot of stuff that's winding down, and they start ramping up their attacks on hip hop in particular, and Spike Lee, and a lot of it turns toward Black culture.
Right.
89 is when Do the Right Thing comes out, and you've got Joe Klein writing, and this movie's gonna cause riots, and Roger Ebert saying, "You're full of shit. This is a great American movie." And you had the panic over hip hop lyrics and 2 Live Crew and everything, and so
Got down to censorship became the
Yeah. And so the tides shift.
crap. We pushed them off of heavy metal, and then they found black music. Ah!
That's right. That's right. But metal is also, despite the fact that, we do hear a lot about how Nirvana destroyed hair metal in 1991, a lot of that was shifting a little bit anyway, because Guns N' Roses comes in and they're kind of a bridge, and Metallica gets really popular, and there's an authenticity about Guns and Metallica that doesn't exist in many of those other bands. So who by 1990, even into 91, before the big September, when all those albums come out, Blood Sugar Sex Magic and Bad Motorfinger and Nevermind, all came out on the same day. But Guns N' Roses and Metallica have already taken over metal.
Yeah.
And then Pantera's there, and it's a completely different kind of deal. And so rock is about to shift anyway.
Yeah.
But hip hop blows up in a real big way at the same time, and that becomes the new thing to attack. You've got NWA, you've got Two Live Crew, you've got Body Count.
Yeah.
And these become George Bush talking about Sister Soldier.
Geraldo never did a special on that, did he?
On hip hop, I don't think so. He
Mm.
probably did episodes because his talk show was running by that time.
Yeah.
His talk show starts in the late 80s, and then when it gets canceled, he goes to Fox News.
Gotcha. Would you say remember John Stossel?
Dude, okay.
Is he like economics, Geraldo? Is that what he does?
John Stossel has bedeviled me multiple times. When I was teaching at St. Mary of the Woods, the president at the time, Dave Bears, super nice guy. His daughter, Beth, star of Two Broke Girls and Neighborhood. Dave, big fan of Thor, so I hope that Beth introduced him to Kat Dennings. But anyway, so Dave asked me if I wanted to go to a Chamber of Commerce dinner one time, or a luncheon, and they had some journalism speakers, and John Stossel was one of them. And a more self-inflated gas bag of a speaker I have rarely encountered. And after it was over, I thought, I'll never have to see that fucking guy again. Fast forward 2018. In the fellowship class that I'm in, when I started the Saturday Evening Post, and some of us were in this journalism fellowship as well, go to Washington, D.C., and for part of it, and we go to San Jose for another part of it, and there's some speakers that are brought in, and I'll be goddamned if John fucking Stossel isn't one of the speakers who's in the room that comes in to talk. And that had gotten worse. And not only was he a self-important gas bag, he verbally assaulted one of my classmates in that group, and just ripped on her because he's a dick. And it was kind of funny because this a lot of the group leaned conservative because of the nature of the group, but the Post guys weren't. And then he had some people in the middle, and this one particular young lady, very smart, very articulate, very environmentally centered, more center left, but mainly like real left on environmental stuff. And she was asking a question, and he just lit into her about stuff. And it was one of those things that it was so bad that the room instantly turned on him, that everybody turned on stuff. And it wasn't so much that like anybody said anything, but like the attitude kind of shifted. And some of us had been taking notes to talk about stuff, and I was sitting like right at the front table, and I just closed my book and turned the book over on the other side and sat back. And I think that there's he kind of knew he lost the room.
Oh, geez.
And I tried to reframe it, but it was like my friend Chris Wakefield and I were talking, and Wakefield said, I think if you'd gone another couple of sentences, I would have stood up. And, but it was just one of those things where it's like, Stossel had that self-righteous dickhead about him. And
Yeah.
when you mention that, I mean, I have to tell that story because fuck that guy. But at the
Yeah.
same time, that drips off of Geraldo.
Mm-hmm.
So much of the special, that this self-appointed, you know, virtue-filled lion of journalism, when we all know he opened Al Capone's vault the year before. We all know.
Right. Yeah, this is well
bullshit.
into the he's a failure type
Yeah.
thing with that.
And he, you know, just these guys, a lot of these TV guys, just get to bounce along,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and especially once they enter the right wing track, they just go further down the thing, because some of those guys that started on Fox found themselves on, you know, Newsmax and OAN and all these other things after they've kind of outlived their usefulness to them.
Yeah. So yeah, and he's still on Fox, I believe.
Stossel might be.
Or Stasa or
I think Geraldo went somewhere else.
Geraldo's still. Did Geraldo leave?
I think that in the aftermath of some of the stuff, post-Trump stuff, I think he might be somewhere else.
Gotcha.
But I have to admit, I don't watch that.
I don't. Yeah, no, I don't watch it either. I've just seen where like I remember the past like year seeing articles about Geraldo going against the grain over there at Fox News and getting pissed.
He was on the 5 until this year.
Gotcha.
But so at some point this year, he's no longer on that show, at least. He quit Fox News. Well, okay. Here, I'll read you. He joined the 5 in 2022 as one of the rotating liberal co-hosts.
Oh.
He announced on June 21st, 2023, he'd be departing the program on June 30th, but remaining with the network. A week later, he announced he'd been fired hours before his scheduled June 29th appearance. As a result, he quit Fox News after 23 years, citing quote-unquote growing tension that goes beyond editorial differences and personal annoyances and gripes.
Oh.
So, but apparently, he ran afoul of the network for calling out anchors for what they did in response to January 6th.
Oh, okay.
So maybe a face turn, but he apparently took Hannity to task and some other people for not owning up to what was actually going on.
Gotcha.
But you know, this is very recent still. I mean, this is June, and since I wasn't paying any attention to it, then you know I haven't seen anything that further that's developed. But and the end of June even, so we're talking this July, August now. So maybe his contract still prevents him from going to someplace else.
Oh yeah, he's probably got a non-compete for at least a period of time, probably a year.
But like you said, the Today Show didn't want him to come on to promote the Satan special, and I imagine there are quite a few news programs or maybe even whole networks will say, yeah, maybe not so much Geraldo.
That hack? Oof, we've had enough Geraldo.
Because well, and to be fair, I've got to say, in terms of the talk show hosts propagating this stuff, we can't let Oprah escape, because in 1988, she had Laurel Rose Wilson, who wrote a book called Satan's Underground, which came out about the same time. I don't know if this special influenced that title or that title influenced this special title, but she was another SRA recovered memories person, and she and Michelle Smith from Michelle Remembers both appeared on Oprah in a 1988 episode where
so
Oprah
it was this
didn't
year.
question the authenticity of those at all, and everything was presented directly as fact, as if it happened. It was in the books. And the special part about that is Wilson in particular, after she got busted for being a fake, especially for being too old based on the stuff that she's writing about, reinvented herself as Laurel Grabowski, a Holocaust survivor.
That's right, yeah. So
stupid. But think about how much fucking trouble and torment these people caused.
Yeah.
Too, by lying about this stuff, because those books and those narratives fed all of this stuff. They certainly fed McMartin
Oh yeah.
and all of those things. I mean, these people led to livelihoods and businesses being destroyed, and
Because
people
they get put as like expert witnesses. Their testimonies are reference documents. They're, you know.
they one of them was a McMartin witness even, and it's crazy town. It's
Mhm.
crazy town the way it was Salem witch trials stuff. It
Yeah.
was, you know, which I don't know, which one of my favorite things in recent years is that there's a theory based on descriptions of the food stores and everything that because of fungal growth in the Salem area, everybody might have been tripping balls. So
Right.
maybe they did see giant birds and stuff.
That's true. That's true. Oh,
I
that's
saw
funny.
Goody Proctor and she was flying. Well, I admit I was flying myself for a couple hours last night.
Right.
You know,
These
but
exorcisms or seizures or schizophrenia, as you might like to call them.
yeah, well, it's kind of like the thing of when more people were diagnosed with autism and the knee-jerk reaction was what's causing autism. It's like, well, maybe the diagnosis just got better.
Yeah.
Maybe we identify it now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we identify epilepsy instead of possession. So wow,
Right.
look at how those epilepsy diagnoses went up. 'Cause
Yeah.
now we know what we're looking for. It's like, I'm pretty sure that, you know, diabetes gets diagnosed more readily now than when, you know, the 1800s. They didn't
Right. Yeah. It goes
Yeah.
down. And yeah. And we all get phones and videos, and all of a sudden, UFO sightings go down.
Yeah, exactly. And so with this special, kind of like you said before, I think the insinuation is that it really was a rough precursor of what whole networks would be like.
Mhm.
And a lot of the stuff that Geraldo does with the whataboutism and asking a question, and then when the person starts to answer it, switching to another question, is exactly the Ben Shapiro model,
Right.
the Gish Gallop, where it's, you know, you didn't answer fast enough. You must be blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
or that I always talk about the South Park episode, Johnny Cochran. Like, look at the Wookiee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same
Yes.
thing
Same thing.
where you just throw a bunch of stuff out and try to smoke screen because you don't have any evidence. You don't have a clear thing.
Mhm.
And again, like Brandon said, this this period informs a lot of the modern conspiracy theories.
Yep.
That a lot of the prototype, the pattern for how those things are distributed is there, but the twist is the internet makes it way worse.
Yeah. Yeah. If you missed this Geraldo special, you didn't tape it, you might get hearsay and just forget about it.
Yeah. It wasn't it wasn't re-aired.
Or it wasn't do your own research.
Yeah. What, you mean I have to go to the library? I'm not going to do that.
No.
But I know it's right because a guy on YouTube told me.
These Satanists are the cleanest, most diabolical, scheming killers we've ever seen. They're all over the place. No one gets caught. The cover-ups, police can't get involved. The medical examinators, oh. And the police even have videos to look for it, as you showed me.
I do like the one cop in was it San Francisco with the hat whose accent kept changing the longer he talked.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh god.
They're everywhere. It wouldn't surprise me at all that they're all over the country. It's like, dude, you don't even know what part of the country you're from. Your accent, every sentence you speak.
I'm American. Yeah, but yeah, that'll wrap us up here for the Geraldo Devil Worship special from 1988 October night. So the Halloween season. let's stir up the panic for everybody. And that'll do it for another installment of the Prize to Panic. So we will actually be back with another installment of this for you next month. So stay tuned for a November product of the Panic. It'll be right after Halloween. probably the first episode of November. But until then, Troy, where can people keep up with you and donate to our worshiping Satan cause?
Well, I write for. Wait for it. We're gonna do it, Brandon. I'm the executive editor of the Saturday Evening Post.
All right.
And so you can find a lot of my work at thesaturdayeveningpost.com, and you can find me on Facebook, and I'm still lingering around X for whatever ungodly reason, and then also Instagram, just Troy Brownfield or Troy.Brownfield. I'm sure you'll be able to find.
All right. And I'm on X and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. Written work is on whysnowblue.com. Also, as always, check out popcon.us, especially for information regarding the podcast awards and the live podcast stage there. And then next time here on the show, Jessica and Greg are back with me, and we're going to take a look at Rob Zombie's Firefly Family Trilogy. Firefly Family Trilogy. I said that really weird. Like the Firefly Family Trilogy, but no, the Firefly Family Show, which is House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and 3 from Hell. Satan.
One of the best unironic uses of Freebird you'll ever find.
Correct. Till then, stay film positive.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.